What is going on, people? We are back once again. Myself, Stish, and my sparring partner, Quinny. I'm going to turn my phone on silent. Notifications coming through. Big up, everyone. You're in here nice and early. Shout outs to Ian Sorare in the chat. He's used his Prime subscription to chuck us a little bone. Thank you for that. If you are listening on the podcast, we are live, as always, on twitch.tv/Plastician. And if you're watching in the future, you're probably watching via Quinny 3001 on YouTube. You can use both of those channels to interact either live or in the future with the podcast. We love the comments, love the interaction, so please do join us whenever you can, wherever you may be. Big shout out to everyone who's in the chat. We've got a nice little contingent in there already. Quinny, how has your game week been? How has your week been in general? Good to see you as always, mate.
Well, great to see you, Stishy boy, looking slick Rick as ever. I've had a pretty mad week, mate. It was Trophy Day in Glasgow in more ways than one, you know, in the real world and in Web3 worlds. So yeah, it's been a pretty manic week, and then the sun has been splitting the sky up here. And yesterday I got roped into doing a real shift. Like I was actually doing manual labour yesterday. Back at it, doing some real work, which was an experience in itself again, to say the least. But yeah, so that was my manual labour mic, and this is the studio mic that's back on now. Back in nice and comfy and thinking about football and looking at all that good stuff. Stishy boy, there's been some end products here, there, and everywhere, you know. And much like you were saying in the intro, love the comments and all the interactions that come out for the podcast every week, because this podcast is all about getting the end product out there. You know, this season, like between myself, you, Tony, when he's been on the show as well, this season's been brilliant. You know, we've had a lot of success on the podcast, you know, with the teams, the trades, and we're going to be getting into a lot of good stuff in this episode, kind of looking ahead a little bit, as well as kind of attacking the here and the now. But Stishy boy, you've got a huge weekend on the cards. I've seen you're looking good with the haircut, but you're on it this week, eh?
Yeah, I'm not. This haircut it's got a purpose this weekend, as I'm off to Vegas. So I needed to make sure I was looking as sharp as possible, and make sure I've got those the skin fade as low to the ground as possible, so that I've got plenty of room for suntan activity on the side of the head. So yeah, I've literally come straight from the barbers. So thanks for the comments. That's always nice to know that the barber's done a good job. Shout out Adam in Addiscombe. If any of the local Croydon listeners are listening, that's where we get the shape up. But yeah, off to Vegas. I noticed a really funny tweet actually on my sort of Sorare timeline today. Someone who is in Vegas at the moment playing in the World Series of Poker sort of took a sneaky video of someone on another table, like sorting their teams out on Sorare data, which we love to see. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that while I'm out there. But I'm assuming that'll probably be me. I've got to try and figure out what time the sort of deadlines will be, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to set my teams today before I get on that flight tomorrow, because I'll be up in the air at the kind of deadline. So I'm going to have to make sure, fingers crossed, I won't get any kind of DMP activity while I'm in the air. There won't be a lot I can do about it. So all my teams will be done tonight. So going to be a very busy day and a busy weekend. Yeah, it's going to be funny, kind of like trying to keep up with the scores and kickoff times and completely different time zone. But I'm sure there are a lot of American listeners out there that can kind of vouch for the different times and whatnot. But yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out for anyone at the World Series of Poker tables. I'm not out there for the poker tournament myself. I'm just out there on a stag do. So yeah, I'll probably be a bit worse for wear doing my teams than some of the poker players were on my Twitter timeline this morning.
I can imagine with it being like the World Series of Poker on, with there being some Sorare scouts and managers from all around the world, probably in Vegas at the best of times anyway. And as we know, there's a lot of poker crossover with Sorare. You're going to be there for a stag do. This feels like a little Web3 hangover that's about to happen. You know, we're going to find you in a desert in a boot of a car or something, Stishy boy. With the, and I was thinking as well, and I do mean this as a compliment, right? With the haircut, if it was perfect blonde, it is like cartoon character Johnny Bravo. Like it is perfectly like, you know, the shape and the size and everything. Like it's
whenever you come out of the barber,
it's sculpted.
It is. It literally is. It never looks like this when I do it myself. 100%. Yeah. The barbers, you know, they get out there with the hairdryer and all that, and you can never really recreate that on your own. I know there's a lot of people out there who maybe do take that time on their hair. I take some pride in it, but I just cannot get it. I can't get it to that level of like Elvis. It is a bit Vegas, isn't it, at the moment? Let's be honest.
it is.
It is
Very
Vegas.
swish.
Hopefully I get some Vegas end product and we can talk about that this time next week. But I'm only out there for the weekend, and if there's any Sorare managers listening, just keep an eye out for me, and hopefully I bump into some of you out there. It'd be quite funny.
For sure. But we had some end product on the podcast again, like back at the weekend there. I picked up a card. I thought, Stishy Boy, were you picking up cards at the weekend as well?
I did. I had a pretty decent weekend. I managed to scrape into the Golden Cap 270 super rare pool.
Nice.
So yeah, that was nice. We were talking last week about what were we gonna prioritize it. In the end, I didn't fully prioritize it, but I did put a pretty strong team in the super rare 270 instead of going into maybe one of the regions with the teams. I thought, let's give it a go. The prize pool's there. We saw those uniques in the pool. And do you know what? I don't know about you, but I felt like my prize for a tier 3, I think I finished in the top 20. I got a really good tier 3 prize, better than expected. I'm just going to have a little look at what the end product was for the game week. So my tier 3 super rare was Sakasa Shiotani, who plays for Sanfrecce Hiroshima in the J League. So it was great to get a card that I can use through the summer as well. So I was really happy with that. Some of my sort of defensive options through the summer are not that strong. So this gives me a really good one. He's currently injured, but as I am a subscriber of Sorare Japan, I get his emails and I know that he's expected to maybe be back in the next couple of games. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And I also got Jao Schmidt, who plays for Frontale. And he is a pretty decent midfield option. Another one that I can use through the summer. So I was really happy with my rewards this week. How did you get on, Quinny? I know you hit pretty nicely with your end product in terms of this week's weekend prize pool.
Oh, I won't go on to Nonto for too long because I think I've won him since the last time I seen you. I think it feels like
was that a midweek?
Maybe. I think it may have been a midweek or something like that. And I've kind of now I had a deep dive on Nonto like Tuesday morning on Y Scout. I just watched every clip that was available basically, and then I was really sold on him. And then like maybe later that day or the following day, my Twitter timeline was just alive with Nonto to Arsenal and Nonto to City and all that. So. I'm quite well sold. I'm really glad I've got like the first of, and all that good stuff. It's a really good card. By the weekend with the Trophy Day Celtic cards, this was a weekend, mate, where the goalkeepers let me down. It was one of those weekends where not having Joe Hart was a problem. Yeah. Quite often it's the other way around, and I've not, I've managed to have my goalkeepers elsewhere and it's worked out for the better. But this weekend, it was none of them showed up. They were all 40 merchants, including super rare multipliers and such, so. Poor weekend for the goalkeeper. So I only ended up with like some tier 4s and tier 3s and stuff. But like yourself, man, like I feel that the caliber I got was pretty good. Like the striker that I got, I think from the Cap 240 division, Jordan Larson he seems really bedded in now at Copenhagen. He brought in a 70 odd with 1 goal. So that was from 240. And this guy seems like a bit of a super sub, can score, can play. He's 25, and he's traded for some decent levels. The other guy looks pretty mince as well at the face of it, but he's been on loan at Tenerife from Sevilla. And the super rare Stish was a number 3 of 10. And this guy wears number 3.
So
it's a first donor reward and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of got a wee bit of stardust on it. I'll keep it around. He's under 23 forever. So I'll just see where he goes. Maybe he goes back to Tenerife. Maybe he goes, as long as it's not a red X, obviously, could be something decent. And then the last guy was someone that's a relative household name. I would say it's Sorare scouts and managers from around the world. Is Levi Colwell, who earlier today I've seen the reports from Chelsea as he is not for sale. So it feels like he's going to be, Brighton were brilliant this year. And when you look at his even in his L10, he's got 290 pluses in there, So if he's going to rock and roll as an under 23 defender in a Pochettino Chelsea team, that's a great reward to pick up. So maybe not big value, big bangs or anything. I got the super rare Freshie, which was nice as well. A little dose of beef, as it feels like we're now saying everywhere. And so pretty decent. But for me, mate, the biggest end product of them all on Trophy Day, it was all about McBrideACE.
Wow.
McBride won Division 1. If any of you missed it, we live streamed it on the Celtics Are Here YouTube channel.
At it's Celtics here, all one word. There's some capital letters, but you'll find it easy enough. If you search Celtic Sorare, it should pop up easy enough as well. McBride won Division 1. Now, we all know McBride is a whale, right? And he's got this huge account, and look at all these amazing cards, right? But I've been talking to McBride for a long time. You have as well, Stish, I'm sure. Maybe some of you guys in the chat have also, right? And I've been talking to McBride since he started playing this game, right? And I can tell you, that club that he's built is nothing short of remarkable. Like, McBride didn't open his account and spend 500 ETH for, whatever, he has hustled and he has put his money on the table and he's put his balls on the chopping block, buying cards, taking risks, doubling down, doing all sorts of stuff. And it is like, he does everything very well informed. He doesn't do anything like a madman, but a lot of the decisions he's taken, and I've seen it right in front of me because I talk to him all the time. I'm always like, mate, I'm rooting for you. I hope this pays off, but I've not got the balls to do what you're doing. And that's always what I say to him, and honestly, I tip my hat to him so much. So to see him rise up and win Division 1 at the end of that season there, honestly, he was close to greeting when it was on. But honestly, I was saying to him, he was the first person I phoned when I left the game. He was the first person I was thinking about when the goals were going in, and see him winning Andy Robertson unique as a result.
What a result for him. That's the best card he could have won as well, really.
It's incredible, mate. And Courtois Super Rare is great for a star Super Rare. It's maybe a wee bit, it's not like a star outfielder, which is what you're hoping. Really, that's what we're all hoping for. But to get the Robbo, I think more than makes up for it. And obviously, he's got a couple of bags of money now that are just lying around spare for his troubles on top. So, and McBride is like, if you look at him, honestly, he talks to everyone. He helps anyone that he's really got time for. He does have a full-time job in life and all the rest of it as well. He's not like me, Stish. You can just sit and do this stuff all day, every day. But honestly, he is the road to glory. If you ever look at his account and look at what he's got there now, and you can look at his stats on Sorare data and everything, but he is it, and he has done it, every way. So for me, the ultimate end product happened in the last game week, and I went to McBride. So I wanted to give him a big shout out and a wee.
Well done, McBride. I saw that. I was amazed, but I was super happy he got Robbo as well. I think, the gods were looking down on the prize pool when that reward was opened. And well done, McBride. One of the things I've always loved about his Sorare strategy was something that I try to do on a much sort of smaller scale. I'll have a look at usually goalkeepers that I think might, like number one's going to move, or these one's going to go out on loan, or maybe there's some news, and I'll buy like 2 or 3 of them and sit on them. Sometimes they're red X's, sometimes they're like complete nobodies for a season or 2. And I've noticed he does that a lot. He'll pick up like 5 or 6 rares of like a kid no one cares about. That in 2 years' time becomes good for him. And I love that about his strategy. And it's just another way to play the game, isn't it?
Mate, he's mental. See that guy Romulo that you've got?
Yeah.
There's a guy that goes with him in the collections, and McBride's got his one of and his jersey number. He's a mad red X card that nobody's ever heard of. It's like I said in that, like he's got absolute balls of steel in the market. Like if he likes something or he thinks something's an opportunity, he'll do it. Absolute hats off to him. And I'm super happy for him to see him win that. And honestly, what a way to finish the season as a Celtic fan and all the rest of it. We've still got some European stuff to deal with this weekend. And like everyone, Stish, me and you and on this podcast, we've been in kind of next season mode maybe for about a month. But it feels like maybe now everyone's catching up with us and we're all in this mode now. So we're all happy to talk about it and maybe go a bit deeper into, who could be some of the things that are going on and whatever. But you had a strategy that that you put on the show last week that brought in a bit of the end. But it's probably on the absolute opposite end of the scale from where McBride was.
Absolutely. But every win.
Satisfying all the same.
Exactly right. So I think it's another thing as well. Like sometimes it's like take the prize out of the equation. It's like if you go in with a strategy, if you win, it doesn't matter what you've won, you still get that little buzz like, I was right. I got it right. It worked. Like, and obviously we mentioned it on the podcast last week that obviously probably about 6 months ago, I picked up some legend cards thinking I'm going to treat this like ETH grinding. This team should be winning every weekend. There's no excuse to not like be winning cards with the team that I've picked up. Right. So I spent a little bit of money on picking up these limited cards, which, they're probably down in value now as well, probably especially now at end of the season, etc. But I picked up a pretty elite selection of limited legend cards. And then a few months down the line, actually picked up a couple of rare ones as well to open up that one. Problem being, my limited cards is has been more bad luck than anything. I just think that the two other cards that I've needed to pair with the 3 limited legends that I play in that division have never hit for me. I've never had a goalkeeper clean sheet and a defender clean sheet, ever. More often than not, DMP, right? So I've never won in that division. And in rare division, they changed the rules so you could bring super rares and uniques into it. So most of the cards in that division are eaten up by big collectors who have those decent cards in the legends and, you know, have enough about their gallery to put a really strong side in there and pick up a reward. And I've never targeted that as like my main entry because of the legend cards I've got. So if you didn't listen last week, my strategy essentially was I'm going to put a 5-player legend entry into Academy instead of putting out a legend entry. So my Academy looked like this, basically. Casillas in goal, McBrideACE at the back, Laudrup in midfield, and Cruyff and Van Basten Ajax cards up top. And yeah, the legends lineup has hit me a reward, hit me a $5 reward. I also hit a $5 reward in the midweek doing similarly with, rather than putting out a half-assed entry into like Champ Euro or Challenger, like maybe like half of the team here and the other half there, I just put them all in Academy, and that won a $5. So I've had $10 out of Academy in the last 2 game weeks. And you know, there's probably not many more games that I can enter a Legends team in anyway, because most of them have the seasons finished. I think like Serie A's got maybe 1 fixture left, as has La Liga. So I might get one more Academy bang out of those legends until I have to wait till the new season start. But yeah, the strategy worked, and it's something, isn't it? Because I haven't won anything with those cards. So, you know, it's probably not like the strategy I thought I'd be doing with those cards, and it's not the end product. You know, it's not the dream. It's not the dream of winning the big card, or, you know, I don't ever expect that team to finish first in Academy. Let's put it that way. But yeah, if it wins me $5, like 9 weeks out of 10, then, you know, that's money in the bank as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, it's that buzz of like, here's my strategy. Does it work? Yes, it did work. And it's weird, but I'm almost just as buzzing about that as I would be about maybe like a limited card win and tier 3 or something like that, you know, because a lot of those wins might only be $5 or less. So, you know, if you're playing limiteds, those $5 scrapes here and there can really like help bolster your team for the next game week if you reinvest it, of course. And if you don't reinvest it, you know, it's $5 back out of your money invested. So yeah, super happy, strangely happy with that. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can vouch that them $5 ETH wins still feel like wins. You still get the buzz. Definitely. I do, at least.
The problem I've got with that, right, is I've had to set my training teams for this weekend now that all my Celtic cards are dormant and the majority of Europe is. And I need all these guys getting trained up. I've not got room. I've only got 5 training teams, and there's no way I'm sacrificing one of them to try and go and hustle a $5, you know. So it's definitely, you know, it's one of those ones where I don't think it can be killed out too quickly by competitive players, you know, just going, oh, I'll just do that as well, because I'm not interested in it at all. I'd much rather get the XP on, you know, what we're talking about there, 25 cards, you know, all the way, triple XP all the way through the off season, to make sure for next year it couples with my collection bonus and all the other stuff that's going on in the club. So it's a really interesting strategy. It's good to see it's worked out for you, and it's quite fun that we're kind of doing the opposite of one another in that respect, because I'm not touching it.
You make a good point as well, and it did, like, outside of that team I entered, I did look at what I was putting in, because I actually have 6 legends in total. So the instead of using the excess legend to open up a legends entry, I put my Zidane in another training team, and then I put 4 really strong cards with it that didn't fit maybe into my main entry. So even though I wasn't like maybe entering that to get the $5, it was more like that team should bang. And you know, the way that the XP works, it's kind of like you get your base score, don't you? Your base XP for every player entered into training, but then it's multiplied by like the score of the 5 players in that training team. So I kind of made sure that the players I put in with that Zidane because he's guaranteed he should get a decent score, right? And I'm hoping that I've got 4 more players, maybe minus the goalkeeper, so maybe 3 more players are players that I want to really boost that XP on. So there's a part of that in my mind that ticks over. But yeah, it's, you know, as like an ROI strategy, I don't know if it makes sense. Like if people listening to this are thinking, I might pick up a Legends team to stick it in, you know, the money that you're going to spend on a Legends team is probably not worth just banging it in Academy every week. But it is more for me because I had them and I wasn't really getting any joy out of my entries. It's just like, well, let me just bang them instead of selling them, because I still like the cards. I'm attached to the Legend cards that I bought. Especially like the Zidane. The Zidane is like one of my favorite cards in my whole collection because it's the number 21. It's the one. It's the card. It's the shirt number he wore at Juventus. Obviously, it in the world of Sorare, and it's not his jersey mint in. But
it's that season, isn't it? Because he played for France and he was at Juve, you know. So
yeah, so it was actually his. But obviously, the picture on the card is his France shirt, so the 10 is his jersey mint. But yeah, for me. And, you know, like on a personal note, Zidane was like, I was obsessed with Zidane when I went to school. He was at Juventus when I kind of like discovered him. And I think for me, like, he was sort of like, I thought that I had unearthed a gem that none of my friends knew or cared about because everyone was just following the Premier League teams, whatever. No one really watched football outside of that. We didn't have the internet and stuff to like watch all of the games that we can now or know about all the players. But I don't know how, but I saw Zidane play and I was obsessed from watching him play, maybe against United in the Champions League, I think it was. And then from then on, it was like digging around, trying to find, you know, watching, you know, Football Italia on the weekends and watching him take the steps onto Real Madrid when everyone knew about him by then. The World Cup obviously exploded him, that 98 especially, right? So, yeah, that card just is more of a like, has some kind. It's amazing, isn't it? Like you've said it yourself, and I've seen you've made some moves in the market to get your Furuhashi in the hoops. So it is strange. You do become quite attached to your cards in a weird way. They do feel a bit like your players in that sense, but some of them are just like that collectible. So having a Zidane, as soon as it came out, I was like, I have to get one. I massively overpaid for it, but I
feel that way about Nedved and Varane, but I've just never got around. I just couldn't go and buy them. Like, if you know what I mean, yet. But I would love to. If I got a Nedved and a Varane, I would be quite chuffed. But again, as Legends, I don't think they're great use either. The pair of them, so there's no rush from me on that one.
Yeah, but one question actually before we move on. Sorry, really quickly, because this is something that I should have mentioned. Someone in the chat, Quagak32, says, "Can you play a limited Legend with 4 rares in Academy and still get the XP boost from high score?" Or do they need to all be the same scarcity? So no, you can mix the scarcities up, and that's another reason why it made sense for me, because I have 5 legends across. I've got 2 rares and 4 limited legends, so 6 in total. But yeah, I put 3 limiteds and 2 rares into Academy. So that was another thing. It's like I can put them all in a lineup there, which you can't do. You can only put 3 in a lineup in the Legends tournament. So yeah, sorry, Quinny, go on. Say what you were about to say.
I was going to say, with me looking into the SO5 arena for the coming weekend to see how many training teams I had, I see this week as well, we do have finally the long anticipated, the long awaited, the long heralded K-League Special Weekly.
Yes, I've been looking at that because I have a potential entry for it. But what about you, Quinny? Are you looking at that as a potential entry?
I've only got Ki Sung Young, so I don't think I'm qualified, or should I think these rewards, like I'm looking at the rare one now, it is incredible, the prize pool, like it really is. Let me double check the details. You definitely, if you need a full K-League team, at least 5 players playing for these teams, yeah, if anything goes. I think that's incredible. If you've got a J-League gallery, you should be going hell for leather at that.
I looked at it, yeah. The problem I've got with it is my K-League are all kind of mixed across different scarcities, so I don't have an entry in limited because I'm lacking, I think, a forward. I don't have a limited K-League forward at the moment, so I could go out and buy one maybe, but I don't think that the pieces I've got to enter that would even get near it. So it's probably not worth me buying a forward for this game week. In rare, obviously you can go in multiple scarcities, but there's no bonus for your super rares or uniques, right? And that for me throws up a little bit of I could either throw in Baek Jong Bum and Lee Han Bom into that, but they're going to lose the fact that they're a unique and a super rare. Or I could put them in U23 super and actually get the bang for my buck of having a unique and having a super. That's the main issue for me, is I don't have enough maybe like rares that are going to really bang. I do have an option though. I've got the Ulsan keeper and a currently starting centre back, so I could put them in with a couple of other players I've got in rare, but again, do I use Cecilia in that lineup? I've got a rare lineup there, which
there's 300 entrants at the moment. Let's say that goes up to 400. There's basically 100 cards. And for anyone that's not looked at the prize pool, the top prize is a tier 1 unique.
Yeah.
There's the tippy top prize. Tier 2 and tier 3 fills out the podium. Unique, this is. Tier 3 unique for 4th and 5th. Tier 1 super rare, 6 and 7. 8 to 10 get tier 2 supers. And then after that, it's still great rewards. We get super rares all the way into the top 20. And then the remaining top 100 get what will be a pretty good card. Now, I think they're all K-League specific payout. I'm going to imagine, because that's generally how they do these competitions. Excuse me. But for the pain and the drama and the suffering that the K-League community has had, because like you say, Stishy Boy, anything goes in this. So even if you're a rare powerhouse K-League guy, like if you just get the best 5, then you're cooking. You could be pulling a T1, T2, T3, a unique, a super rare, like something incredible. It could make a big difference to any number of players' galleries, So I think Cecilia is probably a prerequisite. And then I don't know the fixtures or the teams and the players in Korea well enough to say who the other main players are. But I would say, like, if you can look at the fixture list and know, for the most part, you've got a goalkeeper that's in the top 2 or 3 outcomes for the weekend, and equally as well, on top of a Cecilia, maybe another 1 or 2 players that you fancy, then man, I'd be hard pressed not to go for it.
One thing I will say, and it's been mentioned in the chat by Sopsy, is that they think that it's potentially a bad game week for them to choose to do this, because there are a couple of fixtures on Tuesday that will only get no A. But I will say it is a double game week, so those games that aren't covered on Tuesday properly are all teams, I believe, that have a fixture earlier in the week. I just need to double check, but yeah, Jeju have Pohang. Yeah, so Jeju, Pohang, Ulsan, and Suwon have like double game weeks. So they do have that. So the only outcome with that, from experience of holding Ulsan cards that have had this situation before, it meant that they had the early kickoff on the Saturday. And in my case, I've got defenders. So they didn't keep a clean sheet. Their AA was added. It wasn't fantastic. So then all you're hoping on that Tuesday is for the goalkeepers to keep a clean sheet so that their score goes from like a 45 to a 60. They don't add clean sheet bonuses for defenders, which is really annoying, because they could easily, right, just add the 10 points, but they don't. So, I think there's a little bit more that could be done on that scoring. I know like the rules are what they are. But there are certain factors of the AA that could just be added, like clean sheets for defenders, which they don't currently do, which is really annoying, because if you've got a defender that scored 40 points and then they play in the next game and they just keep a clean sheet, that's 45. It should be 45. And in goalkeepers, obviously, you've got the clean sheet, but you get no AA. So you're really hoping, if you are Ulsan, Suwon, Pohang, or Jeju player, that they really have a good game in the first game of the game week. Problem for Ulsan is they play Jeonbuk in the first game, which is a much more difficult fixture than Suwon in the second game. And it's annoying, but these are things that K-League holders have had to put up with. So I think it's one of those things. I think Sorare are doing all they can to try and enhance what is unfortunately a really poor situation for K-League owners that is ultimately out of Sorare's hands unless they take over Opta for the season. I don't really know what the issue is with Opta. I really hope that this is a 1 season thing and we don't have to deal with this again next year. But it's annoying as someone who has a decent holding of K-League players that I've pretty much spent the last couple of seasons planning my summer around like my big bang K-League players and pairing them with some America options. But yeah, it's been really annoying. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat who play K-League. We always have a good contingent of K-League holders in the chat, and we feel your pain. We definitely do. So yeah, I think that may affect my game plan a little bit, just knowing that I do have that Ulsan defensive option, but I need them to really bang in the first game, and it's a tough game. And the way Ulsan have been playing the last few weeks, they've been really leaky at the back. So I'm not sure if like the Ulsan defensive pairing is really the route I would want to take going into this. You know, I'd probably rather pick players from another team. I just wish I had rares and not supers and uniques of these players. At the moment, that's my conundrum, is they're probably better off used in tournaments where I'm going to get the benefit of that XP bonus. But
especially with competitors and other people that hold those cards, likely to maybe play one or two of them.
There's another thing as well. There's a lot to think about. This is also
my phone just started talking. Sorry, that happened to me the other day. Don't know how that happened. But yeah, some of those people might be playing it in K-League, so like some of the super rares, obviously the unique's a different situation, you know, but you maybe lose some of the competition from under 23s or for caps or whatever, because they're all running into K-League. A lot of the people in the chat are prioritizing this division like mad, so yeah. I really hope we get some end product crew on the top of that podium somehow, some way. Wouldn't that be something, man? Because I say, man, great quality uniques up at the top there, and you could win it with a full rare team, and that's a brilliant opportunity when it comes around.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be keeping an eye out for some of the names in the chat. In fact, if you send us a tweet at MProductPod, if you are targeting that division, we'll start a little watch list so we can keep an eye on how you guys are getting on over the weekend while we're up and at it ourselves. It'll be good. We'll be rooting for you. But yeah, I may throw an entry in there, but my expectancy is low. But I would absolutely love to win, not just a card like the jerseys. I think I would actually be quite happy with a jersey I can wear, because it's really difficult to get hold of those K-League jerseys over in Europe. The postage is just like such a pain. I don't even know. You know, I can't even tell you if the clubs post to Europe from. It just seems really difficult to get hold of those jerseys, and like to translate the websites as well properly. SR Dime Bar says, I will let you know which tier 1 unique I get. Feeling confident then. That's how we like to go into a game week, though, isn't it?
Totally.
But yeah, I feel pretty confident that some of our listeners will be amongst the end product in that division. We definitely seem to have some heads of the authority in the chat. There's always great feedback and some great interaction from our listeners when it comes to the K-League. So good luck to everyone listening, especially those of you who are in the chat joining us today. We wish you all the best of luck for the game week ahead. Quinny, off air, we were talking about some other things that we wanted to cover this weekend, and a big talking point at the moment is obviously next season. And with yourself winning a couple of lovely under 23 players in recent weeks, has that got you looking at potential pairings for those cards? Are you looking at U23, and what players do you think next season we should all be looking out for? Are there any kind of hidden gems out there? Be good to sort of scratch the surface on what we're looking at U23 wise next season.
Well, for where I'm at the moment, I am highly expecting Trubin to move into not being a blue X card this summer. So I'm kind of hitching my wagon to him. There's a few under 23 keepers I'm keeping my eye on as well, in case they come into striking distance, and I can maybe bring them into the club as well for a wee bit of buffer. But I do feel that the competition level and like the dominance on like set plays and teams and whatever is probably going to be removed from that division, much like we see it in maybe some of the cap divisions in All-Star, where it is maybe a bit more of a, if you know your guy, you know your fixtures, you pick your right captain. It could be MD's week, you know, if it goes back to being a bit more one of those divisions. With me accidentally having some cards that should be playing that qualify for that division, then I'm probably going to be leaning into a little bit more. So Trubin's probably the knife edge for me, actually having a proper go at it in the European season itself. But that Nonto obviously looks pretty good as a U23 forward and everything else, Stish. But I've been kind of on the look, because I've been thinking about this for since maybe about February. I've been thinking, if Trubin moves into Europe,
I've got, in my opinion, the best under-23 goalkeeper on my hands. Like, he's a shot stopper for fun. He's only going to go to a good team, you know, really. Like, somebody's going to spend a bucket of money on him, and he's going to be a number one keeper, playing every week, and we know what he's good at, saving shots, and maybe does some passing as well, and whatever. So clean sheet or no, I think he'll be a very handy under-23 goalkeeper, really. And so the next thought moves on, because the first thing everyone's thinking about with under 23s at the moment for next season is midfield, because that's an area where, and forwards as well, of course, right? But midfield in particular, because midfield is where you expect to get your AA play, is where you expect to get your Veerman. The season before, maybe guys like Sangar, some of these guys that just eat up 70s, and then if they get a decisive, they're bringing in 100 or something crazy, plus XP, and now obviously plus collection bonuses and stuff like that, so midfield is the big one. So when we were chatting about it, I thought, I've got a prediction or two, right? So I said this with the members, and I'll say it with everyone here, right? So you can click it, or you clip it, you can hold me for a receipt on this one, right? But in the upcoming European season, I am going to forecast, speculate, guess, put a punt out there, whatever, that my boy, my super rare, Ivan Ilic, is going to be I think he's going to be number one, right? But I'll say he'll be a top 5 under 23 mid next season. He's taken, for the most part, all the sets at Torino building a pretty exciting team. Not going to be in Europe next year as it looks now. There's one more game in Italy to go. We'll see where that lands. If they're not in Europe, it's perfect weekend-to-weekend player. Main guy in centre mid. Doesn't maybe do enough tackling and interceptions for my liking. But, he's in the final third, takes set pieces, and he's a CM under 23 for another season.
I've just got his scores up. He was not on my radar, but I really like that call. I think you can see that there's some potential there. If Torino do improve next season, if you've got the guy on sets and he's a centre mid as well, then that ticks a lot of boxes for like that U23 midfielder. That was Veerman, right, for the last couple of seasons, taking sets. Interceptions are high. Passing into final third is high. Penalty area entries is high because he takes corners and free kicks. It's like they're the main boxes you need to tick when you're looking for those proper centre mids, right? I think with wide forwards who have a midfield card, you get a lot of like possession lost because of crosses and stuff like that, right? So I think like the holy trinity is, like you said, centre mid, like box to box, wins tackles, gets interceptions, and takes set pieces. If you can tick all those boxes, you've got a midfielder that can hit those hundreds, definitely. And he looks good. I love that call, Quinny. I think that's a great call. I'm going to add him to a watch list. So, he's gone into my players watch list. It's a really good shout. I think that's such an interesting point, that if you really want to bang in U23 Pro and Rare divisions, you need a midfielder like this. You really need one of those pieces, especially now because U23 on any given game week can be the highest scoring division in the league. But I think that what we normally see season after season is the first few game weeks, we don't really see those high scores because all of the sort of tried and trusted scorers of last season have either aged out or moved to a new club and found a bit of rotation. That's the thing with the top end of the U23 pool, is they are open to a big transfer and find themselves on the bench, or because maybe like in the sense of a lot of the really young players, like those 17, 18-year-old forwards who've hit a hot streak. We've seen that with Alvarez moving to Man City. They go from like the absolute cream of the crop to being a very good player at an excellent club that has to wait for their time, maybe finds themselves playing in games that aren't covered by Sorare, so they don't get, a lot of DMPs in the league games. And I think that one of the main, on the other side of it, another card that's been fantastic this season in all those areas you just mentioned is Vermeeren at Antwerp, who took the place of Al Hassan Yusuf when he got injured and hasn't been able to get himself back in the team. But Vermeeren is on the radar of a lot of big clubs. He's, I think, 19. I'd have to get his cards up and again, but I'm sure Vermeeren is very young.
Yes,
so
very young.
He's of that age. He's 18. So he's of that age where a lot of big clubs will be looking at him because he's shown potential this season. They will buy him, sit on him, or ship him out on a loan somewhere. This is the sort of player that a Chelsea or an Arsenal will pick up and send to like Southampton next season or something like that, which would be fantastic. But there is always that risk of, what happened to Slonina last season when Chelsea picked him up. He's just there rotting away on the bench. You don't want that. And I think that is the potential pitfall of entering the U23 market at this stage in the season. It is a real gamble, isn't it? Like, and sometimes if you want to take the gamble, gambling on a player like Ilic that you've just mentioned, who is obtainable, he's maybe not quite like the hot, like, talent name of the minute, like Vermeeren potentially is. Vermeeren has that potential drop in him. But if he does stay at Antwerp next season, I think he is one of those potential unicorn cards. Whether or not he takes sets, I'm not 100% sure. Let me have a little look at Antwerp's situation. But
Antwerp, with 1 game to go, Stish, could win the league. And this season's a rookie. So a rookie title winning card as well. Like you're talking about unicorns. If this guy does kick on and have the career you think he does, that in itself as an individual card could be sweet.
I'm just looking now, and his AA is not fantastic. His scores do come from those decisive actions more than AA. So he's not quite the safe bet of like a Veerman or even an Ilic, like you mentioned, where you get that added bonus of set pieces that, those bump up scores quite a lot. If you get eight corners in a game, that's, potential like attempted assist. If a header goes on target, it's a penalty box area. If like they reach a player with that corner, there's so many things that add up to those AA scores, but set pieces is definitely the main one for me. And, I think interceptions is one of the most overpowered scores on the matrix. Is it 3 points, I think, for an interception? That's a lot of points for an interception. And if you're playing as a defensive midfielder and you can pick 2 or 3 of those up a game, that's big, right? And that starts to add up to those double doubles and the triple doubles. And if you got a player who can hit those, you are laughing. And I think that is what I'm going to be doing over the course of the summer. I think your Ilic shout's great. I can't even think off the top of my head of anyone that ticks all those boxes just yet that isn't aging out. I look at cards that I've got in my gallery and think, where are my midfielders going to be next season? I think there's obvious ones like this, which are like Xavi Simons is a great shout for next season if you want to pay for a like mortgage to get him. But, Xavi Simons is one. I think Arda Güler, is it Fenerbahce, is he at?
Yeah.
He's a fantastic talent. I can't tell you if he's on set pieces or not, but he is an unreal player who, if he stays at Fenerbahce, is going to be putting up ridiculous scores next season. Again, I don't think he comes cheap. We already know about Wirtz and Musiala. Both of those are going to kick on again next season. If Wirtz stays at Leverkusen, hopefully he does. I think he, for his development, it'd be great for him to stay there. Zalabanzi's asking me in the chat, do I have speaking of Ilic, do I have a super rare summer goalkeeper now? I've actually got a couple of super rare summer goalkeepers. I saw that Marko Ilic started for Rapids last night, which is great to see. Although they did put him in against like a team that was always going to batter them and score 3 goals. So that was annoying. But yeah.
He's on got the opening goal.
What did he get? What? I haven't seen it. I only saw his score this morning. I haven't
Sam Nicholson scored the opening goal for Colorado after 3 minutes. And if anyone doesn't know, for about 2.5 years on Sorare, I owned every Sam Nicholson card that existed until like 2 months ago. And I think I gave them away or something. He's got cards for this season, but he scored the first goal last night. And I was like, oh, wee Sammy boy. Good to see you.
There you go.
So sorry, I had to throw that in since we mentioned the Rapids.
Yeah, I woke up to find that he'd started, which is great. But I'm pretty sure Ilic is only on loan till the end of next month. So I might only get utility out of him till the end of next month. So if he stays in goal for the Rapids, unless they keep him the next season, maybe there's an option to buy. I don't know. But yeah, I might only get utility out of him for a few games, if that. But I think because of the situation there, it's going to be a bit rotational. He'll probably just end up maybe in cap 240 or something like that for me, and just hope that he plays the weekends that I use him. But my sort of U23 goalkeeper options, I've got Baek Jongbum at Seoul, who I think feels pretty nailed on at the moment. He's been putting up some good scores, and Seoul look better this season than they did last season. I think they'll be challenging. I think if they can, kick on up top, I think in defence they look quite decent. Going forward, they're just lacking a little bit. Hwang Weizhou has not really banged like maybe most of us expected him to. But yeah, I think in terms of like U23, back to the topic of U23s, any other shouts for next season? I'm, as a holder of Julian Araujo at Barcelona, I'll be really interested to see if he gets a loan. I don't think he gets into the Barcelona squad just yet because he's not really been playing.
Oh, I forgot he.
Yeah, I've not really seen that much of him from Barcelona B. So yeah, I'll be hoping for a move from him in the summer. Hopefully, maybe he gets a move to like La Liga 2. That'd be great to see. But I don't know. Like, I can't think of any.
I think Enzo Fernandez under Pochettino. I think I'm not sure how Pochettino's going to get Chelsea going, but I think with the squad, because they're not going to be keeping Felix. We've heard that already, and we can get into transfer stuff more later on. But like, I think Enzo's got huge potential to really kick on, because Pochettino is going to be more than happy to build a team around him as the central player in the team, both being Argentinian, of course, Enzo being quality, as we know, and probably being the only really successful signing of the last 12 months that they've made. Incoming, and again, there's other stuff that they've got going on there. So I think in terms of other stuff for next year, I think he's a bit of an obvious one. If I was to try and think of something that's maybe a little bit more left field, the only other one that springs to mind, I don't want to maybe let the cat out the bag, I'm still trying to get a forward in, so TBC on that. But with midfielders, I've said it before, and I'll say it briefly, so I don't want to labour the point for those that have heard it already. But Lucas Nemeka, Felix Nemeka, sorry, I beg your pardon, Lucas's brother, he gets disgusting 80 at the moment at Wolfsburg. He does 54 to 59 in a bad game at the moment. And if he gets it decisive, he's like McBrideACE. He gets his scores basically, but he's still under 23 and he plays at Wolfsburg rather than Crystal Palace. But the exact same kind of makeup, very similar player in terms of stature and how he goes across the pitch and that kind of thing as well. So I would maybe just throw him out there if he was in consideration. But I think the price of rare goalkeepers in general for under 23s, if you're looking across that kind of mid-range of the under 23 goalkeeper market, the entry point there has never been as welcoming as well, So I think it's a division. If you're like me potentially, you've got like, I've got kind of like 4/5 of a team there already. Maybe I'm waiting for a goalkeeper to activate. Maybe you've got a goalkeeper in your sights. Maybe you need a striker or something. I think it's a division next year that more people can think, oh, do you know what? I might do well at that this week versus the last 2 years, no timber, no party.
Well, a good mention actually, like of a goal, someone who maybe we haven't seen scores from this season, who will open up as I believe a U23 option for next season, is the Freiburg backup goalkeeper, because they sold Mark Flecken this week. So their goalkeeper, who usually sits on the bench, is a U23. His name's Noah Atebolu. And, he's played some games, I think, for Freiburg this season. He does have an L40 score, which suggests he's played at least one game. The problem you have with him at the moment is I think a few people have latched onto the fact that he will be a U23, maybe useful goalkeeper next season if they don't sign a new one. So his price is massively overinflated at the moment. He's got a current floor price of over half an ETH, which is massive for a goalkeeper that no one knows is going to play. And I think that is, what you get with anyone who looks like they might become a U23. But he looks like a U23 option that we haven't seen before. Freiburg's probably not the greatest club in terms of clean sheets, but Flecken put up some pretty decent scores. So if they can strengthen defensively and Atebolu goes in, then he might become a decent option. As a holder of Okoye at Watford, I'll be really intrigued to see if he moves. I think he should. They overpaid for him. He doesn't get a look in. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be people crying out for him to get a move, hopefully to the Eredivisie, where he did really well before. Some other ones that might be worth a look in terms of U23 goalkeeper, I think the Nico Mantle situation might be an interesting one to follow, to see what happens with him. He's on loan in Denmark at the moment, I believe. And he will be due to return to Salzburg if they don't take up that option. But their goalkeeper situation is an interesting one because is it Sander, who is the other player who has played most of the season for the same club? He is only, I think, 17 or 18 years old. So if Mantle moves, then Sander will probably be number one again next season. And if Mantle stays, then Mantle has still another season, I believe, of U23 utility. I'd have to check that. He might even age out, to be honest, this summer. Let's have a little look. No, he has got another season. So Nico Mantle's an interesting one, because also there is a chance that Philip Cohn moves from Salzburg as well, because he's been tipped to join Man United last summer. Man United are obviously going to be in the market for another goalkeeper this summer as a backup, probably. I don't think David De Gea will be dislodged next season, but there's a good chance that United will pick up a young goalkeeper. We already know about Safonov aging out. He has been on the bench for Krasnodar the last couple of games. They've been given Agkatsev minutes. And I think that might be because they're preparing themselves for Safonov to leave. Safonov ages out this summer, so it's more Agkatsev that we're looking at there. Is Agkatsev going to be number one at Krasnodar next season? He will probably be a decent option because he gives you that, like we know that his supply is stopped where it currently is. So if he is going to be number one at Krasnodar, should Safonov leave in the summer, then he will be like one of those good options that hopefully the supply is low on. You're probably going to be paying through the nose for him if it looks like he is going to become the number one there, unfortunately. But I think those are a few potential moves that I'm keeping my eye on at the moment. Obviously, I hold Maduka Okoye, so I'll be hoping for a loan or a move for him. But yeah, a lot of the good U23 goalkeepers, the mainstays, are aging out this summer. Then we've got the obvious ones as well. I think your Van der Voort is probably like Van der Voort, Costa are probably the two sort of safe U23 options for next season. I think Van der Voort's supposed to stay at Genk till the end of next season. If he does move, then Toby Lyson at Genk looks a good option to pick up potentially. But with that in mind, one final season, I think we spoke about this time last year, Quinny, but Toby Lyson at Genk, knowing full well that he should be the number one next summer, does he get a loan? I mean, if he gets a loan to another maybe club in Belgium or maybe to the Eredivisie, he could be a potentially good option. And he has played minutes for Genk and done pretty well there. Very good with his feet. He's that classic, like modern goalkeeper, what everyone's looking for, someone who's good with their feet. He's tall. He's commanding in the air. So
I think it's very likely we get a handover period next season between Van der Voort and Lyson rather than him getting loaned out. So I think like maybe, post Christmas or when the fixture list piles up maybe or something around international breaks potentially, I think you'll probably just see Lyson get 2 games here, a game there, 2 games there, throughout the season. And then maybe for the last 3 months, like we've seen happen in Belgium before, they'll just go swap. You're number one now. And nobody will wish any harm to Van der Voort. Then they'll give him a wee game at the end of the season to wish him by and off his way to Germany. But I don't think they'll allow themselves into next season not blooding the guy in their team with their defence, with their manager, whoever the heir apparent will be. So I don't think he will get a loan, to be honest. But I think you'll get maybe forecastable minutes. Who knows? But I think he's probably one to look at because he does feel like the heir to the Van der Voort throne. But Van der Voort as a card has never looked so appealing price-wise for a rare, at 0.6 or so on the market. I think the under-23 premium has really been nerfed off in this market correction we've had over the last 2 months, with Mbappe obviously going to be leaving the prize pool and just general sentiment against the competition. And attention, really, no one really pays this competition much attention anymore compared to 6 months ago, because it's about bigger divisions and pros and other stuff. It feels like feels like a bit of a washed out division now, which is why I'm kind of moderately interested in it again. So I think it's one for anyone there if you can build an interesting enough squad. And I think the thing with the 23 is as well, particularly the way it's going at the moment, is it very much has become a division that's very difficult for you to build a roster of saying I will play this every week, because there's so many more. There's so much less players that you can forecast with a good degree of accuracy.
I think a big thing for next season as well is like how appealing will the U23 pool be? Because for the last couple of seasons we've had Mbappe in that U23 pool. Obviously next season Haaland will probably be the top ticket in there, and maybe like Costa and Van der Voort. In terms of like forwards, which kind of players do you expect to be? I guess Wirtz and Musiala will be like the top dogs, and Bellingham, if he's moving to Madrid, he's going to likely be another one. I mean, he'll be a really interesting card for next season, won't he? You'd expect if Bellingham moves to Real Madrid, I think he slots straight into the starting lineup and becomes a mainstay. And we'll see Toni Kroos maybe like rotated a lot more than we've seen this season. What do you think about that? You watch quite a bit of La Liga. I think, you know, you've probably got a pretty good handle on what Real Madrid might look like next season if Bellingham moves.
I think Bellingham will do very well in La Liga. I think, you know, it will suit him. You know, being Real Madrid, playing La Liga teams. I think he will do better than what he's done at Dortmund, SO5 wise personally. But I think the unknown with Real Madrid still is Ancelotti. There's a lot of rumours still that he's going to take over in Brazil. So if they change manager, then the shape that they've been playing with for the last couple of years, excuse me, is potentially back on the drawing board again. And then who knows what the shape is? Does he play? And, you know, could be two sitting. There's three midfielders now basically, and that might change. Maybe two, might go up. Might be one of these new funky shapes where everyone's a midfielder and they all play together for a year or something. So I think that's a little bit hard to nail down. But individually, I wouldn't be too confident this season. He starts 95% of potential matches. He probably starts 75% or something like that over the course of the full season. So he may be going to be a wee bit more frustrating, because I think Dortmund, if he's fit, he plays every game. Whereas at Real Madrid, they do have that, like similar to what we're talking about with Van der Vaart, but they have that passing of the guard to manage. You know, Kroos and Modric are still there and still very good, you know.
In terms of other players, I think you kind of mentioned him, but I really like Eberici Eze and Michael Elise as well at Crystal Palace. I think those two, you know, see the way that they finished the season. I don't know what goes on there managerially next season, but whoever comes in should be playing around those two. Yeah. If Potter comes in, I mean, Potter plays good, attractive, attacking football. He is not going to be, you know, rotating the likes of Elise and Eze out of the starting lineup. I'd love to see Potter there. I think he would be fantastic for Palace. Obviously, Palace is my local club, United fan, but a big follower of Crystal Palace. And yeah, I always love seeing them do well. And they, you know, the last month or two, they've been playing some great football, very free flowing. We talk about, like, you know, potential little stacking teams. I think Crystal Palace under a Potter would be one of those really good ones that on any given game week could come up trumps. And if you play U23, you've got the options of like stacking like a Mark Gahey, Tyrick Mitchell, Elise, Eze. I think they're just lacking like a forward card, if you like, because I think Elise and Eze are both midfield cards. So their sort of forward options are all over 23 at the moment. But there's talk of them bringing in that youngster from Sunderland, whose name is away from me at the moment.
Yeah,
but
I've seen that.
If they bring him in and he becomes a starter for them, then he could be like that. You could have a full stack there, apart from the goalkeeper, of course. But yeah, a lot of interesting potentials for next season. Another one I haven't mentioned actually that came, Jack Clark was the name, that was it. Thanks, Rob Rain. And another player who I picked up last season, who I love as a player, and I think next season, given a full preseason, is the return of Luca Oyen at Genk as an attacking midfielder. He's very much in that Wirtz mold of quite a robust attacking midfielder. Eden Hazard, Florian Wirtz-esque centre midfield player. He had an awful, you know, I think it was an ACL injury. So he's missed most of this season, but has come back in off the bench last few games. He's got some minutes again. So I don't think that they'll risk, you know, giving him a full 90 before the end of the season. I think he'll just play a bit part, get a full preseason under his belt, and hopefully slot straight back into that starting 11 for next season. But I'd love to see Luca Oyen really flourish and become the player that we all hope he can be. Be interesting to see what happens actually with Anwar El Hajj as well, in that sense that he moved over from Anderlecht. He wasn't getting game time there, but he showed under Company during his time in the sort of flashes we got from him when he was in the starting lineup in his 18, 19 years of age. Fantastic looking player, very much, you know, he's always often linked to Mahrez, like that kind of player, very quick, great forward player. He's a midfield card. But if he finds his way into that Genk starting 11, I think he must be, 21 now. It feels like ages since he kind of burst onto the scene for a few weeks under company. But I picked his card up back then. I thought, this is the guy, he's going to be next season. And it wasn't the case, but I've held on to him ever since. He's just one of those cards that probably won't leave my gallery now. But I'd love to get some utility out of him. I don't know if he'll get, I think with Oyen coming back in, he's probably going to be behind him in the pecking order. But maybe he gets in a move. I don't know. But he's another interesting player that I've seen in recent years that might kick on. Obviously, we all know about Doku. Is it going to be Doku time finally? Is he going to become the player we all expect him to be this season? What do you reckon, Quinny?
It feels like he just needs a run of fitness. It feels like he's clearly good enough. He's clearly playing at a level where he can do his thing and get going. I'm not really up to speed with the whole managerial situation, but it must be said there. But yeah, it does just feel like he needs just to get minutes and just to get on the pitch. So I think like that's quite reassuring, because with some of these guys, like you're kind of seeing them get minutes and you're like, oh, well, we kind of had one chance there and I was a bit unlucky with it. And then, maybe time goes on and then before you know it, you're a season down the road. You're like, this guy's not really done much. If I was the manager, I wouldn't be picking him at this point, Whereas with guys like him, it's clear to see, like he can do it. He's got it. And there's no stopping him other than his muscles and his tendons and whatever else is going on. So, yeah, I'm always hopeful for guys like that, that it's just, that they're good guys to have in the club, but they're frustrating because they will, maybe disappear on you for a little while. But I think Doku's, I think he's clearly a quality player.
Definitely. Someone's mentioned in the chat Cherky. Obviously, I'm a Cherky holder. He's shown us some flashes of brilliance this season. I think the big thing for Cherky is, where does he play next season? There's a lot of links for him to PSG, which I think if with Messi move in, might not be a bad move for him now, like knowing that Messi's going. If Cherky does move to PSG, I think that will be a massive step up for him in terms of scoring as well. I think having an Mbappe in front of you, for the kind of player that Cherky is, those passes he makes, the moves, I think he's been fantastic linking up with Lacazette. But I think, Mbappe is a step up from Lacazette. I know like Lacazette maybe in terms of goals this season hasn't been that far away from him, but I think, Cherky's a great shout. I'd love to see that, obviously, as a holder. And it made me think as well, like I also hold Dylan Levitt, who's just been relegated from the Premier League. I know we got a lot of SPFL fans in the chat. And of course, Quinny is our in-house expert. Can any of you tell me what happens to Dylan Levitt this summer? Because I'd love to know.
Has to be sold. There's no two ways about it. I think, did he come back from his injury, but before the season concluded?
Yeah, he's played at least 45 minutes, like 3 times now. So
yeah, he definitely is on the market, because he's wildly talented. It's clear to see. I think part of the reason he's ended up at Dundee United, of course, is maybe some of the top teams in England will just think he's a wee bit too diminutive, But clearly in our division, like he's a capable playmaker. And outside of Glasgow, I think Aberdeen, Hearts, and Hibs would all be crazy. St Mirren, Motherwell would all be crazy not to be looking at him. To try and get him on a deal. And like for those teams, spending your whole transfer budget on a Maverick player like that, like their whole transfer budget, I don't know what it is like, but let's just say it's $500,000 or something. So I know Dundee United didn't spend that much on him. If they spent $500,000 on getting him and then promised Dundee United a kick on, and then they go and sell him for $4 or something, then that's great business for some of these clubs, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. But I think, like we've seen with Levitt, when his contract was out at Man United, he did hang out and he did leave the phone out there for a long time waiting for offers to come. So it might be one that you need to ride through the summer with again, because he'll probably give himself every opportunity to get the best deal available.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, he definitely like left me hanging a little bit last summer, didn't he? We didn't really know what was going to go on. And I think, like you said, I'm pretty sure, if my memory serves me right, he went for like 800k or 900k.
Oh, was it as much as that?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. They might be looking to try and like recoup as much of that as possible. Maybe not quite as much, because clubs will know that they need to sell and they'll get him at a cut price. So maybe, like you said, like $500,000 might do it to get the money in the bank. And like you said, with the kick on of like a percentage of any of future sale for him might be a good shout. But yeah, he showed flashes of promise in the season. I think he's one of those players that if he can find himself playing in a team that is a little bit better off at the top end of the table, he's one of those players. He's not that kind of like dogged box to box, like ankle biter of a player, is he? He hangs back a bit. Sometimes almost looks lazy, doesn't he, in the way that he kind of like drifts around the pitch. But he's one of them players that if you give him time on the ball, he will pick the pass. You know, he makes interceptions. He's that kind of player. He's not winning loads of tackles in the games. He's winning like 1, maybe 2 tackles a game. But in a better team, you know, in a Rangers, in a Celtic, in a Hearts, you know, whether I don't know, I don't think he moves to Rangers or Celtic personally, but maybe a Hearts or Hibs, like you said, or Aberdeen. I think in a team
like Aberdeen this year have had Leighton Clarkson, who has been very, very good. I think he's on loan from Leicester, and I think whoever he's on loan from, it might be at Liverpool, but it's something like that. I think if he could play Championship next season, I think he could be very good. The last really good Aberdeen player on loan was James Maddison, and he's been not too bad, you know. So this guy is L15, is L5 or whatever, 64, Leighton Clarkson, and he's been a real. I think he is a bit more tenacious than Levitt, you know, from what I've seen of him. But he does that role of playing in the centre of the pitch and stringing the passes and orchestrating the team, you know.
Yeah,
from what I've seen of him.
Zalabanzi in the chat says, so kind of like a Pirlo Eriksson type deep playmaker. I think that's quite a good. Obviously, he's not off that level. Pirlo's like legendary, but yeah, I think Eriksson looks a lot like that for Man United as well. Sometimes you don't know what he's actually done on the pitch, but he just needs to do it right in that 5-10 minutes of the game where you need something to happen. You give it to Eriksson, and he's got enough time to pick a pass. He will make the pass, and I think Levitt is like a slightly rougher version of that. I don't think even like he's quite as dynamic with his passing as maybe. I think that's a part of his game he does need to improve a little bit. But maybe that was like from watching him at Dundee United. Sometimes he's found his passes a little bit too sideways. But with the right runners in front of him, who knows what he's capable of. And maybe I'm hoping as a holder that he does get a move and kicks on. And, you know, like you were saying, when a player gets relegated, do you sell him? I've always been one of them people that I'd rather just hold on, because this is one of the only uniques I own as well. So it's like, if I sell him, I'm going to be selling him probably at a loss if I wanted to sell him now. But, you know, I bought him to have utility for plenty of time in U23. And I do believe that he gets a move this summer. So all eyes will be on like where that move is. But like you said, Quinny, we might be like holding on to our seats right up to the end of the deadline day to find out where he's going to move to, because he might sit there and hold out for the best option. But it'll be an interesting saga to follow for me, particularly. Got a lot of people in the chat, a lot of Scottish fans talking about that, and I think a lot of us are expecting that move to happen. I'm just trying to go up through the chat to see if there were any more shouts. Quinny, have you spotted anything in the chat that popped up as like potential U23s for next season?
I've been trying to keep on top of it. It's been coming. There's been some great shouts, a lot of goalkeeper ones as well that we didn't really mention or whatever. But probably the last thing I would probably say on this kind of thing as well is somebody asked, and you mentioned it as well, about keeping relegated cards or whatever. Man Mulgrew, I'll be keeping that unique. Then I think that when I bought that card, I knew I was going to be taking that to retirement, and it just feels like that's probably now basically the case. Even if he does play next year, I don't see him moving on. But I've still got my Tony. I'll keep Tony because I think Tony will probably stay and get top goal scorer and get them promoted and whatever, and then be back to fighting best if that's the way things are going to go out for him. So I'm quite happy to hold on to Tony and Charlie. And I don't have any other ones really, but I think Levitt is a defo hold, Stish. There's no two ways that, you know, like any teams that get relegated, and he probably wasn't signed with a relegation clause really, because they were signing Stephen Fletcher, you know, and Aziz Behic, you know, Australian World Cup player, and you know, if you know they made Dundee United tried to push the boat out, so I don't think somebody like Levitt would have got a relegation clause of like, you know, half in his wages or anything like that. Maybe, you know, maybe there is. What do I know? You know, but I think he's definitely a sellable asset that helps keep them afloat if they do need to hold on to like Mulgrews and Tonys, for example, you know, that aren't on like pennies. And if they're going to be in the Championship, losing huge, because that drop off in Scottish terms is massive. You know what I mean? Not playing the Glasgow teams that, you know, half a dozen times a season between the two of them is huge revenue loss, you know, so they'll need to. And Levitt just makes the most sense. People will want him. You'll be able to get the most amount of money of him. And from the existing squad to play the level they're at, they'll probably miss him the least in terms of impact on the pitch, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing that we didn't touch on, and we haven't even spoken about this off air, Quinny, so this would be a really interesting point before we close out for the week. But another thing that Sorare announced recently in one of their updates was that they were going to do these month-long competitions, or like longer. They did. I don't even know if they said month-long, but longer competitions. What's your thoughts on that? And are you excited to potentially enter some of those, and what the kind of like strategic thinking behind those might be?
I'm excited for it. We need to see the format, but before we can get super excited, like, is it going to be like deploy 8 players and then select, make your own draft kind of vibe, and then every game week from the 8, pick your 5, or, is it going to be submit 5 and forget about them for a month, or is it going to influence, like, if you deploy the team in the monthly leaderboards, you can't play it in a game week normal? Does it not matter? So there's a lot of creases that will be coming from it. But when you look at that K-League special weekly, we never really quite touched on this as much as I would have liked to, just because there's so much going on at the moment. But that's a K-League special weekly that they're throwing out there because the K-League is needing some love, right? Uniques. I've just dropped out and came back, so I'm not sure if that was me or you or what was going on. But I think that's the kind of caliber of reward we could see in these monthly leaderboards, is because they've been designing this reward pool for so long, I think, to accommodate so many more competitions and all that kind of stuff than we've had exposure to previously. And we're starting to see that now filter in, and we're getting golden 270s, K-League specials. We're going to see the monthly thing come out in the summer. They'll probably test drive it with MLS or something. And I think that'll give us a whiff of what they're thinking and what they're doing. I don't think that'll be the main event, but I think that'll really turn on when we get to Europe coming back in, and there'll be monthly leaderboards maybe to mirror the progression we see from amateur to semi-pro or something, perhaps. But those leaderboards should be spicy, in terms of prizes, what's on offer. They did say cards, money, and more is what's on this, so could be a juicy prize pool to go after. But will it be league specific? Will it be scarcity specific?
I'm not sure if I read it, but I'm pretty sure they said that though any cards that you use in a monthly will still be usable in other competitions, so it won't be like an exclusive. But one thing I'd love to see is maybe like if you're entering the monthly, you rather than like entering a sort of random team into it every week, I think you should have to pick a squad. I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast. I can't remember if it was you I was talking to, but I think like, how we kind of go into, if we treat it a bit like how the common version of the game works, where you kind of pick an 8-player squad and you can make 2 substitutions out of that squad each week, or swaps, but that has to be done within your own gallery rather than with the free cards where you can choose any player. And I would love to see a format like that adopted with the cards that you own. So a draft, like pick 8 of your players to start the season, and the season's like the next month or whatever. And then maybe you can make 1 swap per week. I'd like to see something like that, be an interesting way to play the game. And just the idea of planning ahead for the fixtures, looking at the month ahead, working out what players you think are going to be used, what fixtures they've got, where they're likely to bang the next couple of weeks. I'd love to see sort of like within that month-long tournament that there still are maybe weekly prizes, not necessarily like massive ones, but it might just be coins. It might be, it might be a card, or it might be an extra swap or something like that. Little things that make the gameplay a bit different. So like, like the top 100 finishers win a card and the extra coins, or I don't know. Like, I'd be really interested to see how that affects prize pools from the other leagues and divisions while it's ongoing, and whether or not we'll have week-to-week rewards, or if we just have one big one at the end of the month or season, however long it is. But I like it. I think it's good that we're thinking of new game modes. It's always nice when you kind of gets your brain ticking, a bit like the Golden Cap 270 did. When there's a little something different to aim at, and I think we've got that with the K-League this weekend as well.
I think I seen the guy that won Golden 270 got De Bruyne. I think that might have been the Super Rare division. Somebody said something like that to me, so just thought I'd throw that in there since you mentioned it.
I did see, I saw someone, it might have been in the limited division, the first place limited card was a really good one, and then the rare was like a Kimmich. It was like they won like a really good limited card, and the rare that they won was like a rare Kimmich in the limited division. So, and that was it was a relatively small user as well. It wasn't like a big banger of a team, if I remember rightly. So if you're listening and that was you, congratulations. That is one hell of a card to win with limiteds.
For sure.
One of the best there. So Yenaton says, the limited they won was Mbappe. Limited Mbappe and Rare Kimmich for the winning the 270 golden. So Sorare very much pushed the boat out for the prize pool in that. And I think, like we said, we were really pleased with the prizes we got lower down the prize pool as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see just how good those were. I haven't looked at the rewards section on Sorare data, but might have a little peruse of that after this is finished.
I've got a wee midweek. I'm sitting 23rd at the moment, so cross my fingers and toes. That holds for Friday night, wee trophy day to kick off the weekend, where we've got the final games in Spain and Italy, as well as Champions League finals not too far away. We had Europa League last night. They even mentioned any of that. But then we're getting into that's kind of, I think that's all I've got in the tank for this anyway, buddy. It's going to be a busy couple of days as well. Absolutely. And I can't wait to hear how you get on in Vegas.
Hopefully I get on better in Vegas than I did in the midweek. So I think I'm not holding out for much end products before the week ends. But fingers crossed, I come back from Vegas a little richer and hopefully a few Sorare cards heavier for the end product over the weekend while I'm out there partying my life away. But yeah, I'm looking forward to catching back up with you again next week, mate. Good luck for the game week. I'll be keeping an eye mostly on the FA Cup final. I think it'll be about 7 a.m. out there while that's on. So I'll have a sore head and hopefully some breakfast at that time. Be keeping an eye on that and fingers crossed we don't get a Haaland hat trick in the first half. Fingers crossed. Ian Sorare says tenner on 23 Stish. So I'll take your advice on that. And if it doesn't come in, I will be invoicing you, Ian. So yeah, we'll take that as financial advice. Gang, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Quinny, always a pleasure. Great chatting to you, mate. And good luck, everyone, in the game week. Hopefully I'll come back a bit more tanned next week on the podcast. Cheers all. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. And we'll see you again next week.